I'm not sure if you're familiar with Stoic philosophy, but I'm here to say that Stoics, their discipline and their self-control is just not enough. I know that many of us have things in our lives that we want to change. We want to break our addictions. We want to regain our health. We want to be better providers. We want to be happier, have happy marriages, lose weight, and of course, keep it off. What a concept, right? Stoic philosophy offers a way, very superficial way, to do this through discipline and self-control. The problem is it's through sheer force. They say things such as wake up early before the sun comes out, know your purpose. The interesting thing is that I've worked with thousands of people at this point, helping them break their addiction to food. And here's what I found. This level of discipline and self-control, right? This whole really self-denial does not work. It's not enough. So what I would say is this. If you've struggled with food addiction,
I like waking up to the smell of bacon. Sue me.
if you've been on yo-yo diets, if nothing has worked for you, you've applied all these principles, all these precepts that the dieting world tells you to apply, and it hasn't worked, it's simply, my friend, because you need 5 things in your life that will radically change not only your diet, but every single aspect of your life. Hustle has become a buzzword in our culture. It's fixated on optimizing, on grinding, on life hacking. It's now trendy to work relentlessly, or at least appear to be working relentlessly. This whole thing of I am busy has become a status symbol. The hustle culture has brought the concept of discipline and self-control to the forefront, suggesting that unwavering, persevering leads to achieving our dreams and finding happiness if we become disciplined individuals. Key advocates for this culture are people like Ed Milet and Gary Vaynerchuk, and the internet sensation Andy Elliott draw much from these Stoic philosophies, right? And if you know anything about ancient Greece, it was a thriving place, very much like today. Stoicism was the battle cry for everyone, right? Everyone was basically adopting these Stoic philosophies, and the basis of them were to discipline and self-control yourself as much as possible. Stoics really just aspire to get to that physical well-being, to the intellectuality, to really master self. The problem with Stoic philosophy is that Stoic philosophy simply is based around rationality. In other words, they believe that if you could get XYZ concepts down, then the rest of your life would work. Very similar to the dieting world. If you get your macros right, if you get your calories right, if you get your points right, then and only then will you achieve the body that you're looking to achieve, or the health that you're looking to achieve.
Energy you take in gaining the weight, you have to reverse it and use that same energy in losing the weight, taking that energy and making the exercise.
Nothing can be further from the truth. And this is why I'm paralleling Stoic philosophy with the dieting world, because it's all based on rationality and concepts, when weight loss is more of an emotional thing than anything else. It is a mindset shift, and until that mind does not change, nothing changes. So when we look at Stoic philosophy, which is once again very similar to this whole idea of dieting, we have their basic 6 principles that they live by, right? They thought that if they could achieve this through self-control and discipline, their lives would work out, their lives would be perfect. And it looked like this. Number 1 was virtue as the highest good. Number 2 is focusing on the controllable, whatever they could control. Number 3, living in harmony with nature. Number 4, accepting fate. Number 5, moderation. And number 6, eudaimonia, which is a Greek word that means prosper, flourish, right? So they thought if they had these 6 principles down, everything would work out. And when you think of these principles, you say, well, what's wrong with those principles? Those principles sound great, and they sound like they're self-standing. And of course, if you apply those things, you're going to live a good life. Most of us know that morals and principles only take us so far. So then the question is, man, JT, okay, you're telling me that diets don't work, that these rational Stoic principles don't work either. So then what works? Here's what I've experienced in my 23 years of working with people and helping them break their addiction to food. When people first come to our program, everyone is skeptical, right? People are skeptical because they've come from a bunch of different diets. They've tried a bunch of different things. And that little nagging voice in their head says, why would this be any different? And so, of course, I'm a total stranger to them. They found me somewhere in the internet. Maybe I got referred to them by someone who did well, but yet they haven't experienced the change. And until you experience the change, you can't really have that conviction that moves you in the direction of stability. And so what happens oftentimes when people come to our program is that the first 6 weeks, we take them through some physiological changes, okay? We basically get them into a semi-ketosis. We get them to really burn some of those excess glycogen storages that they have that are compounding and making them gain weight. So that's the first thing we do from a physiological standpoint. But some other things are happening at the same time from a cognitive perspective, and that's that we are resetting people's palates, meaning changing their affections for food, and changing the way their brain perceives reward when it comes to food. That's very, very powerful, and it's the basis of sustainability. Now, all these things that I'm mentioning here, the physiological changes, the cognitive changes, they're all very rational, and nothing changes much from some of those Stoic philosophies or some of those diets that I continue to compare to this particular situation. But here's what happens. Oftentimes when people start to see that the foods that they used to love so much, they don't love anymore, that they're getting complimented, people are looking at them, people are asking them questions, they sort of become the go-to person when someone is not feeling well or suffering from obesity, or maybe they have high blood pressure or high A1C levels, and now people are coming to them and seeing them, right, like a light in the midst of darkness. That's very inspiring. And that causes people to start getting really, really excited about these changes and to start to reconsider their old life. And here's where I really stopped to say that this introspection of how people were living before and how they are living now on the plan starts to change these heart convictions. I want to draw some parallels here really quickly and talk to you about my first 31 years of life, right? My first 31 years of life were very much based on rationality, based on concepts, based on precepts that to an extent got me places, right? I was, quote unquote, pretty successful for the world standards. I had a business, I had rental properties, I had homes, I had all these things going on for me. And from afar, I looked like I was successful. And a lot of those successes had been brought about by principles. But there was still something in me that I couldn't explain. I couldn't understand why I was so empty. And so what radically changed was that when I started to see that there were other sides of my life that weren't working and were actually making me sick, aka dependencies, aka addictions, that I had picked up along the way, I started to think, why, if I have all these things and everyone told me that if I had these things, I'd be happy, why am I not happy? And I started to ask that question, that fundamental question. And that fundamental question, that introspection really led me to a place in where I realized that my life was out of control, that no matter how much I disciplined and self-controlled myself, I wasn't going to be able to make it happen. And then that was the point where a guy who was constantly obsessing about control gave up control, and I looked up to this guy. I remember saying, if what that pastor said the other night is true, and you're real, God, come into my life, change my heart, and give me a new life. And that was a very short version, very quick version of what happened. But a lot of other things happened after I said that little silent prayer. And I started to really see things in a way that I hadn't seen them before. What my clients, my members inside of my program often tell me is that when they go into the tempting environments where they would indulge in sweets and sugars and salts and excess and just overdo food, that they no longer could do anymore. And it's almost as if their stomach turned by seeing those things. When I hear that, I know that change of heart has started, because that was very much what happened to me with drugs and alcohol. When I separated myself from those environments and all of a sudden I went back, I remember that the smell of alcohol in someone's breath would make my stomach turn. And I couldn't understand it, because prior to that, I'd love to have a drink and enjoy myself, and yet those environments were now repelling me. And so there's just a lot of parallels here. And so what I would say is this: if you've struggled with food addiction, if you've been on yo-yo diets, if nothing has worked for you, you've applied all these principles, all these precepts that the dieting world tells you to apply, and it hasn't worked, it's simply, my friend, because you need 5 things in your life that will radically change not only your diet, but every single aspect of your life, which is what the Empty Your Bucket Plan stands for. We're not just here to help people lose weight, but we're here to help people change their lives. It's one of the most tangible ways of personal development. And so these 5 steps are, number 1, a relationship to God, which is different from religion. Okay, religion says you must do. God says, I already did it for you. It's about surrender, right? And understanding that and coming into that relationship, into that personal relationship with God. Number 2, self-awareness of my sinful nature. If I think I'm a good person, I do as best as I can, we're still caught up in the whole idea that we're good. And we are fundamentally flawed. Hence the reason when the waiter comes by and makes a mistake and hands you the dessert, you take it. But if it were a salad, you would turn it back, right? We are bent towards the things that are desirable to our flesh. So recognizing our simple nature. Number 3, fellowship around like-minded people, believers. What happens is we're communal learners, and we learn and we progress and we mature in those communities. So when we associate with people that have been walking the faith for a long time, they have successful marriages, they have peace, their cup is overflowing, we learn a lot from those situations. Number 4, aligning our convictions with our lifestyle, right? A lifestyle that is energized by the Holy Spirit. At this point, there's no more sheer force. There's no more you trying to white knuckle your way through things. The Holy Spirit puts self-control in you, and it goes beyond anything you have been able to ever do in your life. Number 5, I believe that once you have all those things, right, now the principles, those Stoic principles can be very, very profitable to an extent, right? Or the dieting principles, whatever it is you choose to do, whether it's our program, the Empty Your Bucket Nutrition Plan, or counting macros, calories, or points. When all those things, those 4 points happen, point number 5, a sustainable, practical plan that incorporates habits for consistent living will stick, will be profitable, and you'll never battle with this again. Connecting these ideas of mind, body, and spirit, because I believe that that's truly, truly what well-being is. It's not just the physical side. It's not just the spiritual side. It's a combination of those things that really allow us to have a fulfilling life.